Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another session in Future World Conversation. This is an initiative by Future World Alliance. At Future World Alliance, we care deeply about helping people move from simply consuming AI to actually using it to build smarter systems, make better decisions, and create meaningful outcomes. Today's session is a great example of that. We talk a lot about habits, discipline, and productivity, but the biggest opportunity is learning how to design a personal system that actually works for you and then uses AI to make that system scalable. Our speaker for today, Gunjan Mundra, brings a powerful mix of strategic rigor, operating discipline, and practical experimentation. She's a director in Microsoft Revenue Strategy Organization, where the structure wasn't optional, it was essential. What makes today's conversation especially compelling is that Gunjan did not come from a traditional technical background, yet she built a fully functional habit tracking app through structured thinking, experimentation, and what she calls it vibe coding. This session is not about building an app, it's about building a system for yourself, the one that helps you move from intention to consistency and from discipline to insight. So if you're curious about AI, no code building, or creating better systems for how you work, you live, and this session is for you. Gunjan, we are excited to have you here today. And without further ado, stage is all yours. Thank you so much for leading this session for us.
Thank you, Padma. Thanks for the amazing intro. And thanks everyone for joining on a Friday morning. I know people are busy. So as Padma mentioned, I am currently working at Microsoft. It's been 6 months since I joined the company, and I got introduced to vibe coding actually at Microsoft. So I'm very excited to share my learnings with you all. I'm going to share my screen and walk you through my presentation. So today's conversation is structured into 3 parts. First, I really want to start with the why, like why starting with the project that you're passionate about is actually going to help you. And it's the first essential step really before you dive into vibe coding, because A, it is a lot experimentative, and B, I want to make sure that you use it where it really matters most for you. Secondly, I'm going to share with you the output of my vibe coding experiment. So I created the habit tracker app that Padma was sharing. I'm going to share with you the demo version of that so that you can get a sense of the look and feel. And then lastly, I'm going to share my playbook. And the key word here is my, because it's not the playbook. It is just step-by-step principles and learning that I have now been able to articulate from my journey that you can apply to build something you care about. But there are maybe like hundreds of different ways of going about it. And vibe coding, from what I have understood so far, is really not a science, it's an art. So just keep that in mind as you go through the presentation. So let's dive into the why. Padma teed this up a little bit, but I just want to share with you my story. So before joining Microsoft 6 months ago, I actually spent a decade in management consulting. And if you know anything about management consulting, it requires a lot of travel. There are long-hour work weeks, as well as a very high pressure situations. And so it really teaches you how to deliver for clients and sort of neglect everything else. And so for me, my life became very unidimensional. It was only about work. And I did enjoy reading about productivity a lot, but really it didn't help if I was just reading about it. I realized I needed a system, not just inspiration. And so the game changer for me was when I started using a habit tracker just to create a system of tracking the habits I want to be able to create for myself and create a sense of accountability. And that system helped me go from just work as one dimension of my life to starting to track things around self, family, community, and just giving me a holistic perspective of life beyond work, which was really helpful. And then something was still missing because I kept on this habit for years, and it was helpful to build accountability. It was helpful to show up for myself. However, over time, I really didn't have any insights or trends on what was going well, which bucket was I performing well in versus not, and where do I want to really focus next. And there were obviously habit tracker apps on the market, but either they were too generic, like they didn't really fit into the framework that I was going for, or they were too expensive and I was not really interested in spending that kind of money. And so entered vibe coding in my life when I joined Microsoft. And for those of you who are new to this term, it was essentially coined by Andrew Karpathy in 2025. He's an AI pioneer, and it means even non-coders can just talk to an agent, communicate to an agent, and build apps, right? So it's like literally vibe coding. You don't need to know how to code. You just need to know a structured way of communicating with agents. And so if I switch gears from the why this project was so important for me to the output of the project. So here's the demo of the habit tracker app that I use every day. So this is a demo. So it has fictional data, fictional habits, as well as it has already pre-populated the app for like 5 years. So just keep that in mind as you go through this. So the app is on my phone. I call it the Holistic Habit Tracker. It helps me track my habits on a daily, weekly, monthly, and a quarterly basis. So I've kind of split it across these 4 sort of buckets. And then it also gives me insights on what's working well and what are my areas for development across different comparison periods. And lastly, it gives me trends over time. So how am I performing on the self-bucket relationships, work, as well as community? So this hopefully gives you a sense of what vibe coding can produce. It's a live app. It runs on my phone daily, as well as something that was really missing from my analog habit tracker was trends and insights, which I'm able to get now with this app. And lastly, the coolest thing really is it's iterative, right? And so I did my first bug fixing when I used this app for a month, and then I realized that there was something off. I went back to my code, I edited it, and then again, I had a functional app, and it retained all of my previous data. So which is really cool. Plus, if let's say a year down the line, if I have to customize some of my habits and want to change something, again, I have my code base that I can go back to and edit it and then flow seamlessly. And one really cool thing about this is Padma mentioned, I have no technical background. I had never written a line of code. I built this app over a weekend without any prior coding experience. And that really showed me the power of vibe coding and how it's leveling the playing field for all of us. So this was the vibe coding in action. And now I'm going to switch gears into the third part of the conversation, which is about the how, right? Like my playbook. And so there were 6 steps pretty much when I went back. Obviously for me over the weekend, this is the first time I was doing it. So it was very experimentative and iterative. But once that weekend was over and I had the app, I kind of reflected back on the steps I took, and there were mostly 6 steps and learnings that I took away from that experimentation. I used Visual Studio Code for it. I work at Microsoft, so of course I use that. But you can use any tool. You can use ChatGPT, Cursor, Antigravity, any of those, because essentially any of those tools would have these 4 components and the callouts that I've mentioned on this. So it would have a workspace folder, like a panel for just that. And this essentially mimics the folders that you would see on your OneDrive or desktop. So, that's the left-hand side. It also helps you save these .md files, which are markdown files. And those are called prompt files or skill files. Essentially, these are reusable prompts that I can use across multiple tasks, right? For example, I have a few prompt generation.md, which essentially means if I have to start using natural language to describe my problem statement, and if I attach this file on top of it, then the agent is able to understand the prompt much better because it's in a language that it can understand. And then what's really cool, the blue box here that I have called out, there are 3, at least in Visual Studio, there are 3 parts to it, to the agent. It's not just about execution. Agent is essentially you're asking it to execute some tasks for you, but there's also an ask mode and a plan mode, which is pretty cool. And I didn't know this when I was building the app. I knew this only a few months back. But the ask mode essentially helps you brainstorm with the app, with the agent, and help you structure your problem statement much better. So instead of diving deeper straight into execution, you can actually take a step back, whiteboard or brainstorm with the agent. And then once you've done that, you can plan your steps with the agent as well. Now, it really depends on how complex your ask or task is. If it's straightforward, you know exactly what you need to do, you can straight dive into the agent mode. But if not, ask and plan are pretty cool options for you to start. And then there's going to be a chat window no matter which app you use. And that's essentially where you kind of communicate with the agent to help you either plan the task or execute them. So the first step that I took for my app was creating a reusable prompt. What I mean by that is I learned this from my team at Microsoft, that you can actually create a meta prompt using this CoStar framework, which has the context, objective, style, tone, audience, and response. Essentially, these sections help convert the natural language ask into something that's super structured that the agent can understand pretty quickly. And so this is one of my most favorite and reusable prompts. And the way you create it is, if you go into the chat window of your Visual Studio, you could say /create prompt, or you can even write the words create a prompt for me using this framework. And I would encourage you, if you're starting out on this journey, just save this because it really helps save a lot of time, especially for complex asks. And so the first step and first learning is make sure that you become a better communicator with AI. You don't have to be a coder, but just make sure to create prompts that you can reuse over time. So that was the first step. The second step for me was creating a bare bone HTML file. And this is where I used, because I was using an analog habit tracker, like the pen and paper version of it. I just went to Amazon, Amazon.com. I just took a snippet of what that habit tracker actually looks like. And then using the prompt I created in step one. So in step one, as I said, like I created a new prompt. It saved it as promptgeneration.md. So .md again is a markdown file. It's a skill. And so I said, use that file. And then I essentially turned it around on the agent to say, let's say you pretend that you are a UI UX designer. I have a hard copy of the habit tracker app that I use. Can you actually give me an output of an app to give me a sense of the look and feel of what this would look like? And so the output really was I got an HTML prototype in minutes. And again, for those of you who are new on this journey, HTML is just a kind of a file. So if you would have noticed, the presentation that I'm using right now is .html. I wipe coded this presentation as well. This is not a PowerPoint file. And so it's essentially the first step that the agent took for me, created an HTML. And the learning here was wherever you have some visual references, it's always helpful to have it's always helpful for the agent to have a good, starting point versus verbal descriptions. Like imagine explaining it to create the weekly, monthly, daily, and like it would have taken me a lot of time versus just sending it and pasting an image. And that was it. That really helped me get to the HTML prototype in minutes. So that was step two. Step three, as I mentioned, like one of my pain points with the current way of tracking habits was I did not have any trends or insights. So I couldn't just ask it to use this visual reference for it. This is where I had to do some thinking on what exactly I want. Like what does trends mean for me? What do insights mean for me? And the biggest learning here was, the screenshot you see here is one of my probably 10th iteration, because the 9 preceding iterations were all about asking it to create something, and agents would create. If you ask it to do it, they would create something, but I was just not happy with the output. And the worst thing is the tool runtime and rework really compound quickly if you yourself don't know what you want. And so agents and AI is not magic, right? Like you need to know what exactly you want, at least a good idea, and then it can make it better or best. And so my learning here was just taking a step back, doing 5 minutes of whiteboarding on what is your goal, what are you trying to achieve, what does good look like. Thinking structurally on that is super helpful versus diving straight into asking the agent to start creating something for you, and it'll save you a lot of time. So clarity before tech is mostly helpful. So that was step 3 for me. Step 4 was to create a demo version with fake data. So once I had a good, I would say, template for the HTML, unless I would have used it, i.e. I would have tracked some of the habits, checked some things off, I wouldn't have seen what the output would have looked like. So instead of me doing this for a few months and testing it out, what I did was I just let the agent populate the HTML file with fake data. So fake habits, fake check marks, like randomized across 52 weeks as in an year. And that gave me a sense of what that tool is actually going to look and feel like. And the surprise for me was testing with fake data actually surfaced features that I hadn't anticipated, because I would have probably waited a year after having used the app to figure out what was missing. Instead, you can just advance that and make sure that treat demo versions as a discovery mechanism, not just validation. So that was a really cool learning for me. And once that demo version was created, step 5 for me was just fine tuning. And this is where it really depends on how nitpicky you get, because agents are really, really powerful in giving you what you want from, I've added some screenshots here of the UI, the habit button, or the add or the plus button, and some dynamic toggle that I was looking. I was just fine tuning, looking at the output, seeing what I don't like about it, and I would just tell the agent to edit it until it was good enough for me. And that's the difference between having a prototype versus a tool that you're going to use every day. I knew that I was going to use this habit tracker every day, so I needed to be at a certain level. And that's where the last 20% is just about fine tuning and making sure that it is, it works for you. The output works for you. And the last step is converting the HTML into an app. So far, my habit tracker was in an HTML file. So I was seeing this on my browser. It was not an app on my phone. And again, there was a lot of learning just by doing this last step. The wrong prompt, which is where I started, I just said, hey, here's the HTML file that I have fine-tuned, and this is what good looks like for me. Create an iOS app. And just by stating this, it sent me down a very confusing path of node.js commands. So it would ask me to copy paste stuff into the node.js window. And I was like, this is not fun at all because I am not a coder and why am I doing this? This is your job. And so it took me a while to actually get to the right reframe. And I just told it, hey, like this is the HTML file. Can you help me convert this in the shortest amount of time? And that's when it then gave me the most effective path. So if I zoom in, it actually told me that there are 3 ways. And then the fastest is 10 minutes. And it said you don't need an app on your app store. You can just you could just tap add to home screen in Safari. It looks like an app and it should be sufficient for your purposes. So that right reframe took me a long time. I think this last step was the longest portion of my habit tracker app creation journey. And it was really the prompt that I was using was the incorrect one. And that was why I was stuck. So this is the last slide, and then I'm going to pause and open the floor for questions. These are my 6 steps and 6 learnings from that weekend experiment. So first, create a reusable prompt. Become a better communicator with the AI by using prompts that it's able to understand. So that's number 1. Number 2 is first create a bare bone HTML file and use visual references where you can versus trying to overly describe what you want. Third is when you're adding the net new elements that you don't have any visual references for, please try to do some whiteboarding and just taking a step back and understanding what is it that you want to do before you start iterating with the agent. By the way, I did not know about the ask or the plan modes. I only knew the agent mode when I was doing this. If I had known about the ask mode, I would probably have whiteboarded or brainstormed with the agent before executing, and that would have saved me a lot of time. So that's number 3. Number 4 is create a demo version with fake data. I think that's really powerful to be able to surface features that you wouldn't have otherwise imagined that you needed. Number 5 is fine tune till you get a working version that looks good for you. And last is when you're converting the HTML into an app, just make sure that you use the right prompt for your needs. If it's the most effective path that you're looking for, just say it so and let it do the job of finding the most effective path versus you telling it to do X. And then lastly, I'm just going to leave you all with this, that this requires constant experimentation. There's no such thing as being an expert in vibe coding. Things are changing so fast that you would just have to constantly experiment yourself. And there's no single way to do this. You might find a better way. This was just the way I used it. And then lastly, again, I never written a line of code in my life. You don't need to be a coder at all. All you need is some structured thinking. And hopefully these learnings are going to be a good first step for you as you start experimenting. So that was a mouthful. I'm going to pause now. I have not looked at the chats. If there are any questions, Padma, I'm happy to answer those.
This was really interesting. The floor is open for any questions. If you have any, just unmute yourself and then ask. We can start going from there. When I was the 6 steps framework is really powerful and really interesting. I really like how you have framed everything.
Great, thank you. I'm glad it's helpful.
Yeah, Ross has a question.
Yeah, Kujan, this is great. I was curious how and why you chose Visual Studio and HTML versus like Lovable or Base44, some of the other vibe coding platforms.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, it's about awareness, right? Like when I joined Microsoft, the VP of our group, he introduced us to Visual Studio and vibe coding. And so for me, all I knew was Visual Studio and how to get started there. And he had told us those basics of the CoStar framework, creating a prompt, what does a workspace mean, etc. And so I didn't even know that there were other tools that were available. I just started with what I had. And since I got great, output in the first go, I really didn't go beyond that app.
Okay, good. Interesting. Yeah, this is great. Really, really interesting.
Thank you.
And it'll run on your phone too, right? Or in the web?
Yeah, it is on my phone. I use it. Yeah, I use it daily.
So you manually enter all the details?
Correct.
How is it?
Yeah. So if I go back to the demo version, you would see that. So it looks like this on my phone. And then on the track, so let me pause here. So this was the demo version. So it had kind of already checked things off or randomly crossed things off for me. But I actually click on it and either it checks, or if I double click, it crosses it for me. So it's something that I do daily. So it takes me like less than 2 minutes. And then there are also like weekly habits that I do over the weekend, and then monthly at the end of the month and so on.
So along with the screenshots, have you given any kind of data source, knowledge source into this? For example, I remember the screen where you showed a few books, the Atomic Habits and all those things. So was it just for your reference what you want to do, or you gave those as a source, as a knowledge source, and then make it use some kind of framework while building all this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, because I was using this for a while, right? I was using for 3 years, so I had a good sense of the buckets and the habits. So the knowledge base that I gave to the agent was the knowledge base that lived in my head. Like I knew that these are the habits I want to track for self, these are the habits I want to track for work, and so on. And so it was mostly me feeding it the knowledge base, and I don't think I asked it to give me any suggestions, but you could, because especially for the demo version that it created on its own, I did not give it the habits. It came up with the habits. I just told it, I need these 4 buckets: self, work, family, community. And then it came up with all of these habits by itself.
Okay. I have a follow-up question for this. So a lot of people expect AI to figure things out, just like the way it figured things out. So where do you think that expectation breaks down?
I think for me, the example that really comes to mind is the trends one, right? Like I thought if I just tell it that create a trends tab in this HTML file, it would do the job, because I gave it a very high level instruction. However, it broke down because I didn't know what I wanted. What does trends mean? It's such a broad word. You can drive a truck through it. And so I had to take a step back and then think through what is it exactly that I want, and then give it direction. And one of the things that the VP of my org, he keeps saying, it's like these agents are like genius interns. They are like, they're genius, but they don't have all of the context. And so they can execute really well, but you need to give them direction of what exactly you want, like what's the output you're looking for. Otherwise, they're going to do something that might be great, but it might not be fit for your needs.
Okay, nice.
Gurpreet.
Hi, Gunjan. Thanks so much for doing this. So I also whiteboard, but I use mostly Lovable. I want to know, like, the problem that you described, that the agent was not able to understand what you wanted and you were like stuck in it for a moment. Do you think, as like in traditional software development, we need to provide these agents with prerequisites like a PRD and more information before building? Or do you think like vibe coding is literally like vibe coding and not giving it enough context and just deciding on the moment?
Yeah, honestly, my answer is going to give away that it is just vibe. I don't even know what PRD means, for example. So like being super non-technical here is okay, because you literally can communicate with it in natural language and it would do the work for you. So I don't know, are those requirements something? What? Okay. And so
just requirements document. Yeah.
In my case, like those requirements are essentially the steps I wanted to take or the output I wanted to create. And so it might not be in the standard requirements format, which probably coders use or are used to. It's natural language and it is able to understand what I want. It takes a while, obviously, but it's still super fast.
Thank you.
Of course.
So while testing this app, did you use fake data to test it out before actually seeding in your inputs?
Sorry, can you repeat that, Padma?
When you build this app, did you feed in fake data to test out how the app is doing, the analysis and the trends, how it is giving you the output before you seed in your own inputs, actual inputs?
Oh, good question. So I think I had already given it some inputs already at this stage. Like these are the kinds of habits I wanted to create. However, there were only a few because I was still testing out the HTML. But for fake data, I asked it, I said, I said, please make sure to add some real example of habits in each bucket to make it real, right? And so I gave it the buckets, the self, family, work, community, and then I let it do the work of inputting the habits.
Interesting. So did it reveal anything, the data that you fed, did it reveal something entirely new, like a surprise for you if you haven't fed in any actual data?
Yeah, so for me, for example, this Insights tab that I'm showing, it did like, how you see momentum, improving, drifting, etc. Earlier, when I said, okay, create an Insights tab, it just created like high level percentages, but those percentages didn't mean anything. It was not insightful enough. And so I had to literally give it a benchmark and say, actually, maybe a benchmark would help here to say if it's above 70%, I'm doing good. If it's below, it's I'm drifting and whatnot. And so that I wouldn't have thought of until I would have used the app for like a few, maybe months to come up with the insights, right? Because I was starting from scratch and it didn't have any data. So that's where fake data really helps because it, when you see the output, you're like, oh, this is probably not up to the mark. And so it helps to fine tune then.
Yeah.
Ross?
Thank you.
Excellent. I have a two-part question. And part one is maybe the ultimate question. Have you gotten better at your habits because of this?
Honestly, as I said, like it's been a few months. And so I already, when I was using this analog habit tracker, I always had the sense of accountability, which I continue to have. But now at the end of the month, I am able to actually see which bucket I am performing poorly on. And then it at least subconsciously changes the framing into, okay, this is something I want to work on next month. It's still early days, but at least those insights are helpful, which I didn't have earlier. Earlier, I would just turn the page after the month, and then I would forget, like, you know, what really happened the previous month.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And then I guess the second part says, have you seen and evolved and thought of new features as you go? Like, oh, now that I'm using it all the time, I wish it did, you know, notifications, or I wish it did this other thing. Have you thought of other features as you use it?
I would say features as in I did think of some habits that I had to change. And so I could go back into the code and change it. I think doing the demo version with fake data already got me to a 99%, you know, like feature list. I was pretty happy with the output. It did help me catch a bug though. Like after a month, I was seeing that whenever there was the weekend, it was somehow automatically editing the Sunday, and then the Monday and Sunday were being confused for some reason. And so I went back to the code and then, you know, kind of fixed that bug. But so far, it hasn't been any new feature that I've thought of. It's mostly about either new habits or fixing any bugs.
Excellent. And have you gotten any learning of HTML now? Do you know more now about HTML than you did when you started?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, the fact that I created this presentation in HTML, I wouldn't have thought that that's possible when I was using the habit tracker.
Excellent.
So you became better in the habit tracker habits, or you became better in building this using vibe coding?
I want to say both.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Both areas of my life actually got better.
It's interesting. Yeah. This looks like a simple tool or a simple app, but it actually has got a lot of what you call self-reflection or self-motivation or a discipline kind of thing that can put you on track with all the things that you've been procrastinating and pushing things for later. Yeah, I think apps like this will definitely help you to be on the track.
Yeah, totally. Can't agree more.
Jane, Rodi, do you guys have any questions? Or share your reflections if you have built something using any other vibe coding tool. Maybe you can share what you have been building or what you have built.
I wish I can share, but this one is inspiring actually to taking note that she doesn't also have a technical background like me. So it's inspiring. I think you can do it by yourself without any technical background or coding experience.
Pavan, you have any question?
It's not a question, Padma, but it's a pure reflection as you were hinting it. So, by the way, on a side note, like, you know, you have a huge fan base here in Chicago, so we'll chat about it sometime soon, right? So,
thank you.
Yeah, so we are all alumni on the University of Illinois. By the way, so my reflection is like, you know, part of my work, what I do is I'm a solutions architect sitting in the sales team in the tech industry. One of the companies called Measure Learning. So what I used to do, like, you know, until a year ago, for several years, was like, you know, I used to write document after document whenever there used to be a requirement, or rather, you know, explaining a portfolio of services. But until a year, in the past 1 year, the approach has completely changed. What used to be a document is now I'm creating an app for the customer, so they can see the working model, so that, you know, they can immediately take that particular model, maybe sometimes with the code, and then incorporate that into their code base and switch immediately to use our solutions or portfolio, solutions or services, which has significantly reduced the implementation cycle time for the customers to use our services, has improved the time to market, time to revenue, and time to take the first question. And so that has been the case. So my reflection, the bottom line is here is like, you know, listening to Gunjan for the past few minutes. By the way, I joined late, but, you know, listening from experiences from Gunjan here, like, you know, at least it tells me that I'm on the right track. I'm not like, you know, overnight becoming a coder, no, but it's everybody is now starting from the same starting point at this point. So that's my pure reflection at this point. But a wonderful session. Thanks, Gunjan, and thanks, Padma, for organizing this.
Thank you, Pavan.
Thanks for sharing.
Sure.
So this actually, this is a question for everyone here. I just was thinking, so now that the AI lowers the barrier to build, right? So it also increases the barrier to judge. So what do you guys think on this? How do you reflect on this? AI lowers the barrier to build, it also raises the bar to judge.
And if I can clarify, judge what?
Judge what you can build, to what extent you can use AI, and because there are still a lot of people who are not comfortable in using AI in everything that we do. So, for example, in Future World Alliance, we are building our organization from the ground up. We use it almost for most of the stuff. It's just our human thinking, and we converse it. We discuss with AI and come up with a lot of ideas. Let it be the newsletter or the podcast or even this Future World Conversations. I had brainstormed with ChatGPT to understand how I can frame this better. So it doesn't mean that I am not having my own thought process or something, but I use it as my co-partner to think. So in the same way, a lot of people judge. And a lot of people are not comfortable with these thoughts yet. So what do you think when it actually AI lowers the barrier to build, but it also increases or raises the bar for judgment in any aspect? What do you guys have? Do you have to say anything on that? Yeah, Jane, you can go first.
Hopefully my audio is already working
now it is
very
clear.
well. Oh, cool. So for me, I just have a recent experience using AI and I know Ross is aware about this. This is about my case study. One of the inspiring company that I aspired to working with gave me a case study, and they gave me. Usually when I usually present it on PowerPoint, but this one they wanted to do a full narrative essay or a case study on it. So there's going to be hypothesis, like, and everything is from first to finish and the conclusion. So I got my MBA, but unfortunately, I forgot the outline already. Like, what is the outline again? So I use AI to outline it and give me a template. But my problem was the correct prompt. How do I use prompt? And Ross gave me that part also, like how do you ask properly. So for me, it's not about a judgment, but it's more on, as what you said, Padma, it's more of guiding me of what I forgot. Like, I really forgot like the template, like how would I use it, and what is the proper prompt as AI or Copilot onto this one. Yeah, it will judge you, but at the same time, as you mentioned, it gives me a guide on how to move or flow forward. It gives me also all the answers, but all the answers that I saw there, so it's up to you it's going to be you to think or make a more strategic decision if it's true or not. It also guides you very well. So for me, it's not like how the AI will judge you, but you judge yourself on how to use the AI. Don't be use the AI as a tool, not the AI use you as a tool, rather. So I think that's my perspective into that one.
Nice, well said. Thanks for sharing your thoughts.
I think for me, the sort of inspiring takeaway here is sort of, Gunjan, you looked at existing tools, and it's like, I don't want to pay that much money for something, so I'm just going to build my own. I went through this a lot with trying to find, I use to-do lists a lot. And there's a few apps that do that. And, I installed them everywhere. I didn't go to the paid version. I tried the free version, and just nothing stuck. And this is kind of inspired me a bit to, well, maybe I should just build my own and go that way. So I think is, in terms of judging it gives you a different perspective to judge what's out there and how it maybe doesn't quite meet your needs. And now with everyone having the capability, if they're curious and if they go try it, everyone have the ability to just build their own now. I think it's an interesting, we'll be interested to see what the next few years bring, because, maybe Gunjan habit tracker for, a subscription of $140 a year, and there's a million people that want that, right? That, you'll start to see all these little, and that may compare with Jane's outline generator, and so it'll be kind of cool to think, now that everyone has this capability, what sort of creative new apps or tweaks to existing verticals start to happen.
Yeah, I know, Pavan, your hand is up. I just want to respond to what Ross said. I think I read somewhere that the era of personal software is here, right? Like, people are not the number of apps are just gonna get proliferated because everybody can create their own versions. And it depends, like, do you want to use it just for you, or you want to actually monetize it and put it on the App Store? But now, regardless, like, people can solve their own personal problems using AI and create these personal softwares. Pavan?
Sure, thanks. Great thoughts, guys. Thank you so much. Two things come to my mind, Padma, to your question, right? So, 15 years ago, a coder used to, who was a fresher, used to struggle with getting the syntax right across all the programming languages. What is now becoming true is out of all the recent experience, and everybody is able to build apps. But what everybody basically is getting better at, or has to get better at, is the prompts that you write. What used to be syntax 15 years ago is now the prompt. The prompt is much more liberal with you. It's much more easier to work with versus a syntax, because syntaxes used to be much more ruthless. If you miss a brace somewhere, gone, your app has a bug. But prompt is not like that. Prompt will help you in how syntax used to behave with you. And in terms of in terms of judging, right? What in our organization, what's happening is because everybody like me also is building apps for their own purposes, or for the customers, or for the team purposes, or whatever. But governance is becoming much more important at the same time. Because when everybody starts creating apps for whatever reason, where does it stop, or should it stop, or where did it normalize and where did it harmonize, and so on? Not everybody should build an app, wasting the resources, risking the company's reputation, and so on and so forth. But governance is becoming that much more important at this point. So we have created a small governance team where everybody can pitch in ideas. If two people have the same idea, then they can work in teams and share responsibilities and create the same app, instead of everybody coming across and then pitching. So governance is one thing that coming to the forefront in terms of regularizing everybody's contribution using the AI at this point.
Right, so true. Thanks for sharing your reflection. Deepti, you have anything to share? Rodi, Deepti, I know even you vibe code a lot.
Yeah. So this is actually a great approach, because when I started actually building using the Lovable and other vibe coding tools, the first question I actually used to do was get a copy of the things which I want to make, not exactly a Canva, because I'm not a UX designer, but something more simple, so that agent understands how the UI looks like. Because even if you give a single prompt, these agents are smart enough to build out something on my own. But if you really want something more usable and get attracted, you need to plan out. And Gunjan's approach was right up to the mark. Gunjan, would you be sharing the slides as well?
Actually, it's in HTML, so I'm not sure if I can. But I'm happy to put the
you can actually convert them into a markdown file or an markdown file too, and send the link across. That's possible.
I can try that. But what I can do in the meanwhile is just put the snippet of the 6 steps and 6 learnings. I think that's the big takeaway.
Gunjan, I will be sending you a follow-up email. Maybe in that, if you could share me all those things, I can condense it into a PDF and then share it with everyone.
Perfect.
So this was a great discussion, great session. So I have a few things to share. So first thing is, Pawan, when you mentioned about governance, so that brings us to one of our sessions that we have scheduled on April 17th, which is breaking into AI governance skills, roles, and real opportunities. So this is already scheduled by one of our speakers. I think this will be a good one, a good session to join. If you want, I can share the link in the comment. And the other one is also, there is one more session from student to AI product manager, breaking into AI product and governance. So we have 2 sessions that are focusing on the similar aspect. Maybe you can check it out. It's all in our Luma calendar. I think that's a good place to check out everything. And also what we do in our Future World Alliance is not just teaching or building. And we also wanted to create a space to reflect on what we have achieved. So next week, our session is on bringing in our winning team, I should say. This was the AI Buildathon, Women's for the Buildathon that we did for the Women's Day. And we are calling in our top 3 project winners to come and share the reflections and share their winning stories. So the idea is mainly to know what happened before the build, to have the mindset, how they build that mindset, and what the process that they went through during this buildathon to create the apps. So this will be a good conversation. This is mostly having all these people come on board and share the reflections. Do check this and then join us for next week at the same time. And also there is another thing that I wanted to share. As you know, we do a lot of initiatives, and this is the next initiative that we have planned. This is AI Launchpad series. This is going to be a 3-part series. Part 1 will be first 4 weeks of cohort, wherein we will be introducing a hands-on AI prompting and engineering and no-code prototyping and all those things, followed by part 2, wherein it will be a next step for anyone who is starting with AI to learn about how they can take that knowledge to build AI agents. And the part 3 is going to be the hackathon that will be having as the after initiative after part 1 and part 2, and this is going to be a hackathon. So the applications will go live on Monday. So stay tuned for this. If you know anyone or if you are interested in learning AI and don't know where to start, I think this is the best way to start in a systematic way. We will be bringing in a lot of experts who will be leading live sessions for us every week, and there will be hands-on demos and even some mini assignments to take home, so that you are not just learning but also putting these into practice. It's like a learning habit that we are trying to build every week. So this will be part 1 will be first 4 weeks, which will be starting from April 20, and the applications are going to go live this coming Monday. So follow our Future World Alliance page. All the details will be shared there. And then if you know someone, please share all these details with them so that more and more people can be benefited from this kind of initiative. And this program is completely free, no charge for this. So there will be a community, there will be hands-on guidance, and there will be all full support that anyone would need it. And no technical background needed to join this program. That's most important. So thank you so much for everyone to joining the session, and this was great. And this actually seems like a kind of better way to share what we are trying to do next. And your session was exactly that. It showed us what is the possibility and vibe coding and the mindset that you need to learn AI. You don't need to have a technical background. I think this is a better what you call the seed before we start promoting this initiative. Thank you so much for doing this, and we'll see you guys next week, where we'll hear all the winning stories from the Build-a-thon winners. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gunjan. This was great.
Thank you. Thanks, Ross.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take
Bye.
care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.